Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to this week's episode of the Xbox Factor podcast. I am one of your co-hosts, MrBooMStickXL, and unfortunately, due to a family arrangement that he had to take care of, Drew, aka the London Gamer, is not going to be here today. But what's great is that I found not one, not two, but three podcast individuals that are, in my opinion, are high-ranking officials within the content creator leadership on YouTube. And I'm going to introduce, first of all, Nintendo Direct. First, I have to tell you, thank you for being here, dude. I love what you've been doing with your channel. You know, I've been a big fan of yours since my goodness, since I was a fan and not a content creator. I love the "let's go" when something exciting happens, because that, of course, is your tagline. And your new channel where you're doing your own music is pretty interesting. Thanks so much for being here, dude.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much, man. Thank you so much for asking. You hit me up, and I was like, "Yeah, man, I'll come by." It's been a minute since I've actually talked a lot of Xbox, so this is going to be a good one for me.
Yeah, I know that you're a Nintendo fan, obviously, but you also, enjoy your Xbox playthroughs as well. So it's great to have you here. And of course, my co-host on the Gaming News at Noon for I think it was about a year, Salty from the Saltiest Gaming Podcast. Dude, listen, first of all, I want to thank you for being here. I, of course, want to wish you and your lovely wife and your beautiful daughter well. I hope everything is good at home. I appreciate you taking the time to kind of hang out, because I know that your second baby is on the way. It should be very soon, from what I understand. But I definitely appreciate you being here. So how you been, dude?
Good morning, everybody. It's good to be back on with Boom and Nick, good buddies of mine. Yeah, we're doing good. July 9th is the due date, so I think that's like 18 days away, but who's counting, right? Anyway, yeah, I was in streaming prison for 9 days on YouTube, and I just got my streaming privileges back yesterday. So yeah, I'm happy to be back and able to do the things that I like to do here on the internet,
Well, you know what's great? I mean, obviously, the 9-day suspension for nothing seemed obviously terribly unfair, but you did cross the 4,000 subs milestone, and I gotta tell you, I told you on Twitter, congratulations, but I'm glad I have you on the show. I can tell you that in person. That is a tremendous accomplishment, and even though you were away for 9 days, you still were racking in the subs. That's pretty impressive, dude.
Yeah, it sucked to not be able to stream, but honestly, it kind of narrowed my focus on the videos, and I've been trying to implement some new things into my content. So you got to make lemonade out of lemons, as they say. So
yeah,
I try to do what I can, and I appreciate everybody here and that subs to me and subs to you and everybody in the great community. It's awesome to be able to make these relationships and talk about the games that we love, to be honest,
Yeah, this obviously is a tremendous privilege for all of us. The fact that we have so many people, watching and tuning into our channels, we do greatly appreciate it. And before we get into the actual show, which of course is the Xbox Factor podcast, and this is the one place where we talk Xbox, good, bad, and otherwise, I have to do a big shout out to the Patreon supporters that have joined this mission of mine. I launched it late April. I believe it was April 26th, and I am up to 20 Patreon supporters, which is outstanding. And I, of course, every now and again like to give them a public shout out. And I'm going to start off with my wife, Josette Rivera. She's actually my first YouTube sub, as well as my first Patreon supporter. I have AP Cool, Biggie 2316, Christopher Hughes Senior, Creeper, the only one left, Defunct Jester, Dave, Elemental P, Jim Jordan, Chaos Theory, Lethal Papa, Mark Devlin, Mental 9R Gamer, Ricardo Willis, Scrub Nurse, Tempest Sun, Stubbs Gaming, and Robert Olson. You guys really, I cannot thank you enough for the outstanding support that you have shown Double Barrel Gaming. And, just to kind of, give you guys an idea, obviously, that I went to E3 and it was great. It was a great experience, very tiring, lots of traveling. LA is big, man. I thought New York was big. LA is it's tremendous. And in the 5 days that I was putting out content, I was able to get out 16 videos and 2 live shows. And I crossed a milestone that I wanted to thank this community for. I saw 25,000 plus views in 5 days, which is literally the most I've ever seen for the channel. So, of course, I wanted to say thank you to the community for really supporting it. I could not believe the amount of traffic through the channel. So I want to thank everybody for that. But, let's get into what we're here to talk about. We do have Enrique from Basement Radio Arcade podcast. He's having some mic issues, so he's probably going to be jumping on in a little bit. And obviously, we'll give him a nice introduction when he gets here. But there's been a lot of talk, and I know that Salty, you keep your ear to the floor as well as Nick, with the power narrative that seems to be shifting in the PlayStation 5's favor due to some very big name editors. Obviously, Reiner from the Game Informer, Andrew Reiner, more specifically from Game Informer, recently did a tweet where it was a lot of back and forth, where he supposedly heard from a developer that the dev kits for the PlayStation 5 are more powerful than the Xbox Anaconda. And it's funny how these narrative shifts constantly seem to change. And I'm going to, of course, again, I don't really deal in the console war shenanigans. I gladly support and proudly support all 3 consoles, but I have to call bullshit when I see it. And I like to be frank like that. Obviously, working with Salty has kind of made me somewhat salty a bit in certain situations where normally I would kind of just just tip my hat and keep it moving. But in this industry, it's safe to say that agendas sometimes wreak their ugly head. And I have a seriously high respect for Game Informer, especially the magazine. It is very old school-ish if you're a print magazine fan like I am. But when I saw this tweet, I kind of wondered why. Was it that he actually getting, this information from somebody, or was he trying to push an agenda? And I want to go to Salty because I know that you have a very strong opinion on this subject. Obviously, pre E3 2019, there was lots of rumors and speculations and talk from Xbox insiders like Brad Sams and several others that are on Twitter, like Clobriel, for instance, where they actually spoke with people that had inside information that the Xbox Anaconda is this monster system and it's going to be remotely more powerful than the PlayStation 5. And then obviously, we come to E3. We saw the interview with Phil Spencer and with Giant Bomb, and we're going to talk about that next. And of course, now we started seeing all of these so-called industry insiders that were talking about how the PlayStation 5 is literally wiping the floor with the Xbox Anaconda based on a tech system. So what are your takes on this nonsense?
Well, first of all, in this industry, it's easy to say you have a source, and then if the source is wrong, then you can just kind of pass the buck off. So I'm not calling anybody out like Reiner or anybody else like that. Like, of course, they have sources and stuff like that, but it's just well known that, it is what it is. People have sources, and then sometimes people kind of bend the truth a little bit to fit narratives. So it's very easy to do because who's going to prove you wrong if you say you have a source, right? So if I come out and say I have a source on this or I have a source on this, and then 1, 2, 3, I have a real source on 1, but not 2 and not 3, and then those things end up not being true, then you can just kind of pass the buck on and say, hey, my source was kind of wrong, so it is what it is, and you move on. When it comes to the power narrative and specs and speculation and all this stuff, yeah, there's a lot of pushing back and forth going on, and lots of information from one side and another. You got the stuff from Reiner, you got the Colin Moriarty on his podcast, and that got split out. And then you have Albert Pinello responding, saying how long it took to get the dev kits out for this, last generation. He pretty much countered the argument there. So who do you believe? Like, who are you supposed to believe at this point? I think there's a lot of truth going around because a lot of these people share the same sources, you know, they have the same sources, you know, so, but I think there's a lot of misinformation being spread because on the internet that moves clicks and drives views. And like I said, if people are wrong, they kind of just move forward. They don't say, hey, I'm sorry, I was wrong and this and that. It's, hey, this other person was wrong. It's not my responsibility. I'm just going off of sources and links and et cetera, et cetera. And then people believe them and they move on. Right. Does that make sense to you? It's just, I just think in this day and age of the internet and social media, especially social media, because people can literally make up anything on the internet. And there's a lot of people that believe what they read. I literally could type up a story on a fake website that I make right now, make a killer story about the PlayStation 5 specs, post it on the internet, and people will retweet it and like it. And who knows, you know what I'm saying? That the stories start moving and generating on the internet, and then the media picks it up, and then it just blows up into this huge story when it was actually just fake. So I think it's just the problem with people on social media today. They're believing everything they see, and I think it just comes down to the sources. So
yeah, you know, it's reckless journalism or irresponsible journalism. You know, again, listen, I'm not going to start, you know, jumping on the media bias bandwagon. Obviously, you know, there are some people that believe it. I partially believe it because, you know, when you talk about this industry, advertising is key, right? Like, it's such a big deal. And, you know, there are certain, you know, companies that work exclusively with PlayStation that were originally with Xbox during the 360 days. There was a turn of the tide, and they shifted. And listen, you know, you have to tip your hat. I say this all the time to the marketing prowess of Sony. They really went for the jugular, and that's why they're in the position that they're in. There's no denying that they were not taking any prisoners. But you know, you've seen the shift, and you know, it's unfortunate that, you know, that the dollar or the publication in question, I'm not going to name anybody in particular, may or may not seem to push the brand further at times. I'm not saying that's what Andrew Reiner did. I'm saying that, you know, I just thought it was, you know, things don't happen by accident. In my opinion, I think things are strategically planned, and you know, he is an editor-in-chief of one of the biggest magazines, you know, that are currently available. So I thought it was, you know, again, to each is everyone's own. I just thought the timing was very strange. Nick, before I get your opinion, I have to say two big shout outs. First of all, Night Wolf 3186 with the outstanding $2 super chat. He says, glad you're back, Boom. Can't wait for today's topic. Yes, thanks so much. I really appreciate that. And the Friendly Neighborhood Blue Shell with the $20 super chat. Dude, that's outrageous. He says, for salty. Thank you so much for that. That is pretty cool of you. I want to thank the almost 100 people already watching the show. I'm going to get to each and every one of you because, you know, that's like my big pet peeve. I like to say hello to each and everyone that's in the chat. It's my thing. But Nick, I want to get your opinion on this. You know, obviously the power narrative, depending on who you speak to, has been and will always be a big deal. Obviously, 1080p versus 900p, power was king, right? And then obviously we saw that narrative switch with, you know, the different group of people, the toxic group of people, where games mattered. And games, I'm going to say this right now, are always going to matter. First party, if you say they don't matter, then you don't know what you're talking about, because first party games do matter, and it obviously worked for Sony. But with that said, the power narrative is shifted where, well, we don't really need the power because we have the games. And now we're hearing, well, power does matter, and PlayStation 5 is in the lead. I think both systems are going to be extremely capable. The only thing that we've heard differently about the two, again, this is what we're hearing. This is nothing in stone, that the Xbox has been confirmed to have hardware related ray tracing and the PlayStation 5 is going to go the cheaper version and do that through software manipulation. So obviously, I think both boxes are going to be very capable. But in your opinion, what are your feelings about this back and forth with the power?
I'm kind of with you. I don't buy into the whole console war thing anymore. I think really this is just pandering to fans at this point. Like, trying to figure out, you get the fans riled up. The Sony's going to be the more powerful of the two. I don't know. We don't have too many facts that have come out from Sony. But we have heard from Phil Spencer, and we have heard like what they do have planned. So I'm going to go ahead and just say I feel like the Xbox is going to be the more powerful one. I just feel like I just don't feel like Xbox can't, like, they are focusing mainly on that. I feel like the Anaconda is going to be the more powerful of the two. I feel like they're just going to hold on to that. But as far as like this narrative going on and how it feeds, it just doesn't concern me. It really doesn't. And the fact that, like you said, they're coming out and saying, the PlayStation is going to be the more powerful one. Salty put out a video a few days ago talking. Somebody said that the PlayStation was going to cost $800. You know what I mean? Like it's all at this point. It's all just for clicks. It's all just to get the community riled up at this point. And like I said, I just wait until we get the facts that actually come out of what these machines will have in them, and then I'll just take it from there. But at this point, it's just all speculation and clicks at this point.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think that what has been going on with with the different narratives being shifted back and forth at this point, the only thing we can go on is when Microsoft and Sony come out and say, these are the specs, this is what it is. And of course, then, you're going to have them sending their systems to Digital Foundry, which is, has become the standard in regards to, blades of grass and such. And they're going to turn around and they're going to say, yeah, well, this system is more powerful. This system is more powerful. But the one thing that I have to say is Phil Spencer has gone on record saying that they will never again be behind in power. And I believe that. I honestly believe that they want to go into the next generation having the power narrative, and also, having the games narrative, which is something that they're eventually going to get to because they're buying all of these studios. And from what we understand, they're not done. The amount of monies that they're making hand over fist with the services is allowing them to be in a position where they can turn around and not just make their own studios, but buy other studios to help support their 13 or 14 first-party studios that they currently have. No one really talked about it during E3, but they just created a brand new studio that's going to handle all the RTS games, and no one's really talking about that. In fact, I'm not even sure what the name of the studio is, to be honest with you, and I've been looking. But real quick, I just have to say, two really big thank yous. First of all, Gotham Guy drops an outstanding $10 super chat. He says, Microsoft have already shown the power with the One X. So in my opinion, they've already shown the goods. So I will give them the benefit of the doubt that they will continue leading the power narrative. And yes, I agree. And the other thank you, of course, is back at the Gotham Guy. A lot of people don't know this. This gentleman, who I had the pleasure of meeting at E3, bestowed a gift upon me that I'm always going to be severely grateful. He had won a ticket to FanFest, and he had originally reached out to me, and I didn't get back to him in time. So he gave us +1 to, I believe, one of his friends, and his friend unfortunately suffered an injury. And at the last minute, while I was at LA, he reached out to me and said, listen, do you want to be the +1? And I have to thank the FanFest team for immediately getting back to me, sending me the ticket. And FanFest was just life-changing for me. I got to tell you, and I said this yesterday on Gaming News at noon, they treat the Xbox fans like rock stars. If you are ever fortunate enough to get into FanFest and get into the conference, be prepared to be wowed. But I want to actually get Enrique's opinion on this. Enrique, is your mic working yet, sir? And apparently not.
Yeah, no, it's working.
Oh, there it is. Okay, there it is.
Yeah,
hey,
no,
welcome, dude.
Finally, I made it. I was like, oh my God, I tell you what, I wanted to, if Google was a person, I would have punched it.
Yes. It's funny because I had the pleasure, if you guys didn't know, the Basement Radio Arcade podcast last night was tremendous. Not only was I a guest on there, and I'm always happy to be on that show because of the relationship that I have with everybody there. Enrique was able to get Matt Piscatella, who is an absolute gentleman. The first time I'm meeting him, we've talked privately. I'm going to get him on one of the shows in the future. Welcome, dude.
Thank you, man. I'm glad I can be here, man. So it's just, Google's funny, man. I keep thinking to myself, how are they going to pull Stadia off if they can't pull Hangouts off, and there's all these mic issues, and it drives me nuts. But no, I'm happy to be here. Happy that I finally got my mic working. Unfortunately, though, I do have a hard stop at 1 because I have to get back to some work-related items.
That's understandable. But before we get you out of here, because you still have about 40 minutes, we're talking about the power narrative shenanigans that has been going on.
Yeah.
Obviously we've heard from Xbox insiders that the Anaconda is the beast, right? It's overpowered. It's the second coming, and we were talking about the Andrew Reiner tweet that kind of set the internet on fire, where according to his sources, the dev kit was more powerful, and he's hearing this from his source, and he can't reveal the source. And of course, Xbox employees came out and challenged him on it. It was a lot of back and forth. What are your takes on this power narrative nonsense that's going on?
Well, I mean, I'm interested to see what the finals. Obviously, I think we all are interested to see what the final specs of these consoles are going to look like. Me, because I'm kind of a tech nerd, and so
yeah, me
these
too.
kinds of things kind of fascinate me. But the back and forth stuff, I don't care about. At the end of the day, I don't care which platform has the most powerful console. If Microsoft has it, great. If Sony has it, great. At the end of the day, I think, like you said earlier, Boom, it comes down to games, and that's the most important thing. I'm more interested in seeing, more so than power with Microsoft. I'm really more interested in seeing what those new studio acquisitions are going to put out in terms of new content. So I'm actually looking more forward to that than the actual specs of the next Xbox. But I don't get wrapped up in the stuff. I see people going back and forth and saying, "Oh, PS5 is going to be more powerful than Xbox, or Xbox will be more powerful than PS5." It just doesn't matter to me. At the end of the day, it's all about games, man.
Yeah, it is about the games, and I think that obviously Sony is in a great position.
Yeah,
they are, in my opinion. I mean, listen, you can. It's really apples and oranges when you talk about Nintendo's first party versus Sony's. I think both companies really bring the goods, and we were talking post, a pre-show about how incredible Nintendo's lineup is for 2019. Salty, you and I talked about this numerous times about how impressed we are, and this summer alone, they're just really laying down the bricks when it comes to their first party stuff. And Microsoft, it's what failed them this generation, but they've made, in my opinion, they've made amends, and they're doing everything in their power to become what they used to be in the 360 days. I just want to say this. I'm going to throw this out there to everybody. I kept getting DMs from people on both sides of the carpet. It was hilarious. Like, it was funny because people are sending me tweets from this one, tweets from that one, and I appreciate it very much. But then of course I was getting stuff from Sony guys saying, "Well, wait a second, Boom. Listen, I know you're an Xbox guy. Listen, I hate being called an Xbox guy. I am a gamer. I enjoy the Xbox platform for my third parties because power matters to me. I'm a graphics whore. I'll be the first one to admit it. So if my game is going to look better on System B, and that happens to be an Xbox, well, guess what, folks? That's where I'm going to lay my head. In regards to Sony's machine, I own the system completely solely for their first party. That's it. But the same thing for the Nintendo Switch, which I have 40 games for. I won't buy a Doom on there. I won't buy a Wolfenstein, not because I don't want to play it, because I think it's any less important, but I've already played it. I buy these, I support these consoles for their first party. Xbox, I have a 260,000 gamer score. I have 900 games. I like my Elite controller. I have 300 people on my friends list. I like Xbox Live over the other two services. So that's where I'm going to play the majority of my gaming. Being called an Xbox guy simply because I talk positive about the system, I think is foolish, in my opinion. But you know what? I know that we only have Enrique for a little bit. I want to move on to the next topic. Look, I'm going to say this. Before becoming a content creator, I think I've said this before. I'm the people that the 130 people that are watching live, which I getting goosebumps just talking about it. Thank you for that. I used to be a fan. I used to show up in the chats. I still show up in people's chats, right? So I used to be the mainstream media podcast guy where I would have everything downloaded onto my phone, and I would just listen. The Gamer Tag Radio, the Game Informer, the Giant Bombs, you name it, I listened to it, right? I fell off. I got disenchanted with the industry probably somewhere in 2015, give or take, because I didn't like the narrative switch that was happening, especially because, I enjoy Xbox and it was just negative. And I fell out of love with a lot of the mainstream gaming channels. And I discovered the amazing content creation that was going on in YouTube, where I actually used to listen to Salty as a fan, Nintendo Direct, Brap, the Iron Lords podcast, RDX, Crossfire. I used to listen to all of these shows as a fan. And, obviously for me, it was a dream come true to be able to be here and, create my own content, have my own fan base, have my own channels, and get a chance to work with these amazing creators, as well as get to know this community. And this Phil Spencer Giant Bomb interview that we're going to break down, it needs to be discussed for a lot of reasons. And like I said, I used to be a huge Giant Bomb fan. And obviously what turned the tide for me personally was Jeff Gerstmann's lackluster attitude on just about everything he played. If you're familiar with Giant Bomb, I don't think there was a game that he liked. And obviously that kind of negativity, it rubs me the wrong way, because I'm like unicorns and rainbows all day long. That's my personality. Maybe people don't get it, but that's who I am. So I when you start talking negative, I kind of tune out. And that's what wound up happening. But I am going to say this. This interview, this E3, this post E3 interview was absolutely fantastic. And I highly recommend Xbox fans give it a watch. But you know what? For this topic in particular, I wanted to point out some very important things that Phil Spencer had to say during this lengthy interview. And then I'm going to get the panel's opinion on it. I actually watched the interview about 7 times, taking notes to try and get his exact quotes, because I don't want to misquote Phil Spencer. And what I found to be interesting was the way he talked about the industry. I know that he's not the go for the juggler kind of guy that people want him to be. That's not who he is, folks. That's Sony's behavior, and it's done well for them. And Phil Spencer, he has this. He wants to shake hands and hug the community as well as his competitors. Now, I'm okay with that because of my personality is very similar. Some people hate that. People, I've been on shows. People just absolutely loathe that kind of mentality. And listen, everyone's entitled to their opinion, but this is what he had to say. He says, in order for us to do better, you don't have to wish your competitors to do worse. I thought that was an important point. We're not building Scarlet not to be the best console. I want to be number one. He says he doesn't feel comfortable pushing someone down so he can stand up. To me, that's a big thing. He also continues with, being a leader in the console market is important to me and the team building Scarlet at Redmond. Okay, that's also important. We're not building the next console aiming for second place. We're aiming for first, and that's what I want to hit. And lastly, he says, we're not planning for Scarlet to be our final console. We're continuing to invest in our hardware team. That's also important. So, of course, now I want to go to, and I'll start with Salty on this one. Regarding what I read and this interview, what were your personal takeaways from the quotes that I pulled directly from the Giant Bomb interview? And did you walk away feeling more or less confident that the Xbox platform is in the proper hands with Phil Spencer at the helm?
I think one of the important things says that you don't have to step on your competition to lift yourself up. And I think that's true. I've always been a big proponent and big fan of Phil Spencer. That's why I call him Big Deal Phil. I love his personality. He's one of the dudes that I want to meet personally in the industry because he just seems like a general down-to-earth guy and very personable, very open and very honest with what he's saying. I know a lot of people say he said some things and didn't do it, but the thing is in business, there's a lot of plans that you make and then plans change. So things happen, but I think he's taken the Xbox brand from the brink of just the bottom of the barrel to way high. Honestly, like if you look at the value of the Xbox brand right now, it's actually, there's some articles out there that say
we're going to talk about that. That's one of the topics. Yeah.
So it's doing real well, and it's at a time where they've struggled with their first party content. That's not a secret, they've actually been able to attain all these heights without stomping on their competition, honestly, because there's lots of people that make fun of the fact that they're kumbaya this and that, but at the same time they're succeeding on that side of the business. At the end of the day, the point is to make money, so that's what they're doing, and they're getting all these studios together and all these resources that made Xbox Game Pass, and that's like the number one value in gaming right now, in my opinion. Like, how can you top Xbox Game Pass? If you could tell me something that's a better value out there, I'd love to hear it. But
it's definitely not Ubi Play Plus, I'll tell you that.
Yeah. Seriously. So it's just, I just like what he was saying. I love the interview. First of all, I clipped it in some of my videos, and him talking about Xbox Scarlet and the future of traditional consoles. He's honest when he answers. Like he started his answer off, I don't know, really. Like, he's not going to make up bullshit. He's going to tell you straightforward. He's going to be honest with his opinions. Like in that interview, it's just like a hangout, him and the interview guy, like they're just talking, and I appreciate the honesty. So it's
pretty interesting that you say that. The way he sits on the couch like a regular dude, right? Like he's just answering as if you and I were answering. And this is a guy that's sitting at the table of 12 or 13 executives. He's one of the highest people in Microsoft.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you could see that when he comes out with his shirt and his jacket on, he's relatable.
Yes.
It's not like he's this snobby business dude that doesn't play video games. It's a guy that legitimately plays games. I see him on Xbox all the time playing. Like, he generally has a passion for gaming. He came up in the gaming industry, and how could you not like that? Because this guy is representing the Xbox brand, and he's a gamer. I don't want some dude that's not a gamer. We won't name names, but there's a guy in charge that wasn't a gamer, and we saw what happened to the Xbox brand in the tank.
Go ahead and name the names. Go ahead and name the names, sir. Let them know.
Let them know.
It's good, man. It's good.
No, I definitely appreciate it. But listen, Nick, before I get to you, I have to say a couple of big shout outs here. First of all, J-Force Games with the outstanding $5 super chat. He says, great panel as usual. Well, thank you for that, dude. And the outrageous $20 super chat from Face23 BK New York says, I feel like it's 2013 again, deja vu, Xbox executives contradicting each other and confusing people. Phil Spencer, I don't have a PS5 dev kit, so I can't claim power. Matt Booty, I think we're gonna have. He's talking. Yeah, you know what, dude? I agree with you. I'm not gonna disagree. I don't like the the one talking about the other and the other talking about this. I think everyone needs to be on the same page. But I think that what you're going to get, I think when Phil Spencer answered it, and I like what Salty went with that, he was being honest. Because I don't have a PlayStation 5 dev kit. Now, they're both being made by AMD. And we know that, that according to the sources, it's the secret source for the PS5. And I think both systems, actually, it's funny. I just pulled an article. I actually was going to use it for the show, and we had too many topics where the CEO of Platinum Games basically was quoted in saying that both systems are nearly identical. That both systems are ultra powerful. So, and this is coming this is from a dev, Platinum Games, who's working on stuff for both consoles, and he's saying this. So it's, we're not going to know until the actual specs come out and we get a Digital Foundry ridiculous video that we're going to get. But I have to say another thank you to Tempest Sun with the outstanding $5 super chat. He says, "Hey, buddy, dropping in to give some love. I'll catch the show later when I have time. Congrats to the 4K sub, Salty." So yeah, congratulations on that once again. That's a big get, dude. And the Board Games Renegade with the outstanding $5 super chat. He says, "Power matters, but with digital content and backwards compatibility, most people will pick the platform they've invested the most money in for the next gen." That is very, very true.
Great point.
That's very true. And Nick, I want to get your opinion on this interview, because I think that this was as candid an interview as Phil Spencer has given. I think he's very honest, and I really do appreciate that fact about him, that he's not a corporate stooge, where he's not just a guy in a business suit talking money. He talks games, he talks community, he talks people. I love that about him. What were your takeaways from this interview, dude?
My takeaways from this interview is that, like everybody said, Phil is honest. Honesty is the best policy, right? That's one thing I can appreciate about Phil and the Xbox brand right now, is that they're being honest about what they're doing. Phil Spencer has come out every year and said, "This is what we're going to do," and they've done it. You know what I mean? There's been no BS from them, so I can appreciate that. And like Salty said, some of these quotes, in order for us to do better, you don't have to wish your competitors do worse. And he said, we don't have to climb on the back of somebody. You lift yourself up. I can definitely appreciate that. And I don't care if he's kumbaya. Phil Spencer being kumbaya and being nice and going over to Japan, brought us Phantasy Star Online to.
Yes, that's a big deal.
So,
yeah.
That is a big deal to me. And so I can 100% appreciate it, honestly. And so it just makes me like the Xbox brand more so than the other competitor. I will say that.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, the one thing about the, when you compare Xbox to PlayStation, when it comes to social gatherings or just social media as a whole, the Xbox brand, the Xbox executives are more approachable. They're always on social media. I mean, what could you say about Aaron Greenberg? I had the pleasure of meeting him at E3 right before the conference went live. He's a gentleman. The guy is. He actually said, "I said, how you doing, Aaron? This MrBooMStickXL from YouTube." He actually said, I don't know if he was lying. I think he could have been just being nice. "Oh yeah, I've heard of you." Holy shit. Aaron Greenberg heard of MrBooMStickXL. That's crazy just to think about that. But
and it's funny that you say it, because you're not the only person who's echoed that sentiment. I have multiple friends that went to E3 as well, and they all said the same thing. And they all said, when we went to the Xbox show, when we went to the Xbox, everybody there was nice. They just felt like it was a very good place for them to be at. When they walked in and meeting some of the leaders, they said everybody was just down to earth people that seem passionate about the company and the gaming and where gaming is going, and not so much trying to crush the competition. You know what I mean? They felt like they wanted to progress the gaming industry, and that was it. It was all in the best interest of the gamer. And so, you're not the only one to echo that sentiment at all.
Yeah, it's like I said, it was definitely pretty interesting to. Like I said, I got a chance to meet quite a few executives. I got a chance to meet Bonnie Ross, AC Bongos, Rod Ferguson signed, him and his team signed a Gears 5 poster with all their signatures, which was pretty awesome. Rod's a great guy, great to talk to. And like I said, that's what I really love about the again, I'm taking nothing away from what Sony has done. They're very corporate. They're very straight. That they're very stiff. You understand what I'm saying? As opposed to Microsoft being more hands-on with the community. They're more handshaky. They're more huggy. I like that, and I think a lot of people dig that as well. Enrique, in regards to this interview, like I said, I walked away feeling really good about the brand. Some people didn't, and you know what? That's okay. If you feel nervous about the brand because Phil's a good dude. Listen, I don't think he's going to change anytime soon. But in your opinion, someone that has been in the industry for a while, what were your takeaways from this interview with Phil?
I thought it was very insightful. I like that he talked about the future of gaming, because I think there's been a lot of questions about, as we discussed last night with Matt Piscatella about game streaming. Is this signify the beginning of the end of traditional console gaming? And he addressed that in the interview, and I thought that was really good. That he said, hey, like Scarlett's we're not planning this to be our last console. And I think that's been kind of in the back of mind for some people. I know, I've kind of, questioned that too. Like, is Scarlett potentially Microsoft's last console? And he addressed that. I do like how he talked about, not needing to, kind of squash the competition per se and be like, basically be an a-hole,
Right.
He kind of talked about that. And I think, my interpretation of that is I think he sees the value, and I think most of us do. There's certainly some value of having more than just one player in the industry. You have, Nintendo. You have I almost said Sega. Jesus. That's how long I've been gaming forward. Sega was around. But you have Nintendo, you have Sony, and you have Microsoft. Now you have Google with Stadia. But he sees the value in these companies. And how each company in some ways does things in their own way to kind of push the industry forward. And I'm glad that he thinks like that. I mean, I'm glad it's not let's dominate the world and take over and be the dominant Microsoft that monopolize the PC industry, which is not the Microsoft people want, and which is actually, oddly enough, why people were kind of apprehensive with when the Xbox first was announced back in like 2000, 2001, because of Microsoft's reputation at the time. But I like that he values partnerships and he talks about those things. He is a nice guy. I've had the opportunity one time to play The Division with him. And,
that's awesome, dude.
Yeah. And just like we were just talking about video games, just a down to earth guy. And like people are like sometimes criticizing him for being too nice. Look, I can only judge him from a business perspective, only judge him by the results, and I think that, look, he was giving a shit sandwich. I mean, to be
pretty
frank.
much, yes.
Yeah, I mean, and look, turning around a brand and turning around the perception is not easy to do. And I can only judge him by the results. And it looks like from what they've done under his leadership, it seems like, look, they addressed the first party issue. That was an obvious issue. They addressed that through studio acquisitions, and it sounds like they're not done doing that. You look at some of those partnerships. Please, anyone, if you like online multiplayer games, online multiplayer RPG games, please look into Phantasy Star Online.
Oh my God, that is such. We're gonna actually talk about
That's
that.
That's
a big get for Microsoft, guys, and it was a big get for them. Back on the OG Xbox when they had Phantasy Star Online. But this is a big get for them again. And so, when I see things like that, Nier Automata came to the Xbox. And so he recognizes, like, look, we need to get content. We need to kind of, diversify our portfolio or lineup of content and that we can offer gamers. And I'm all for that. As long as he keeps doing that, I'm okay. And, I'm looking forward to, like I said earlier, I'm looking forward to what the studio acquisitions that they acquired, what these studios are going to do in the future. And so I do like his, I will say one thing. I do like the the innovation and some of the things that he's kind of put forward. I think the Xbox Game Pass, I think either Salty or Nintendo mentioned this earlier, like it's a tremendous value. And like we talked about,
ridiculous, dude.
Yeah, like it's probably, I mean, Ubisoft's Uplay Plus is pretty aggressive. I think it's a pretty great value too. But from just the console platform, I mean, Xbox Game Pass is an amazing value. And like we talked about last night with Matt on Brap, you know, you got to believe maybe hopefully Sony offers something like that. I think it's a mistake if they don't next console gen. But see, things like that Phil has done, that kind of thinking outside the box. How can we add more value, you know, to the consumer? Those are very pro-consumer things, and I like that. And so I think he's done a great job. I thought it was a great interview, and you know, I'm looking forward to next console gen and see what they bring to the table, man.
Yeah, I'm very excited. I mean, here's a perfect example of the value you get with you know, Xbox Game Pass, which is now Ultimate. And again, I said this yesterday. I might have said it during E3. I'm going to say it again, folks, because you could still do it. Try to find a sale for Game Pass, regular Game Pass. Try to find a sale. I know that Amazon was running one during E3. Buy 3 months, get 3 months free. And you can stack up to 36 months. All you would have to do then is spend $1, and it converts everything to Ultimate Game Pass. So, I mean, think about the value of that. You're going to go from regular Game Pass. You pay that $1. Everything that you just bought gets converted over to Game Pass Ultimate, which gives you PC access, console access, and Xbox Live Gold, okay, for that $1 and whatever the money you spent. I went to the store yesterday, and a lot of people just still don't know this. With Ultimate, with Xbox Game Pass Ultimate, all of the Ultimate Edition first-party games are going to be in there. I went over to Gears of War Ultimate, the Ultimate Edition, and it said install. I preloaded the Gears of War 5. The Ultimate Edition, that was $100. Okay, so that kind of value, when you think about it, like we talked last night with Matt, I'm praying that Sony gets on board and does this, because I'm joining it as long as it's a reasonable price immediately, because I won't have to buy any first-party games if they're going to be in their day and date. I don't know if Sony's ever going to do that, but I certainly hope that they do. But I want to move on to the next topic, because I know you only got a couple of more minutes, and I'll go to you first. You know, the importance, and I don't think I've heard anyone talk about this, and I'm glad that we're all kind of on the same page. The importance of Phil Spencer going to Japan 8 times in the last 18 months has scored the Xbox brand 3 JRPGs that were announced at E3 2019 in the form of Phantasy Star Online 2, Tales of Arise, which looks absolutely amazing, and Final Fantasy VII. Now, we don't know when Final Fantasy VII is actually coming. No, everyone's being real hush-hush about that regarding its release date. Right now, it's for the PlayStation 4. It's an exclusive. How long of an exclusive? No one knows. No one is talking about it. But I have to say that even though the JRPG market, to many gamers, is a niche genre, it's still majorly important, in my opinion. I am an old school cat. I think everyone knows that about me already. I grew up on the Final Fantasy 2s and 3s when they were on the NES and Super NES. Tales of Mana, you name it. I played it and I loved it. So I like JRPGs, and we saw a lot of those on the Xbox 360. Remember Lost Odyssey, Blue Dragon, what was it? Something Sonata. That another one that was a JRPG. We saw a lot of them, and that market has dried up. And now we're going to be getting it. And I'm going to, I'm going to get the panel's opinion on this next. First of all, out of the 3 that I mentioned, Final Fantasy VII, that's standard. It's a remake. I cannot wait to play it. And Tales of Arise, the fact that the Xbox brand is getting a Tales game is in 2019 is amazing. But the gem, the crown jewel, in my opinion, is Phantasy Star Online 2, which, by the way, I'm not sure whether you guys know this or the chat knows this, according to Destructoid.com, where I pulled the story, Phil Spencer spent a significant amount of time with the Phantasy Star Online team, noting how impactful that the original Phantasy Star was on the actual console market, and that led to this partnership. And this is what he had to say: "I wanted to do something with Sega. Ultimately, and this helped, and this meeting helped make the thing happen." Now, this is the bad news for anyone that's on the outside. It's clearly a timed exclusive, and unfortunately, the potential of the PlayStation 4 and Switch ports are not going to arrive before spring of 2021. So this is a big deal. Again, this is what we talk. You depending on who you talk to. Well, Phil Spencer doesn't make these these console exclusive deals. Well, he just did. And again, in the form of Phantasy Star Online 2, which is a big freaking deal. So before I get to everyone else, and I know you have to get out of here, Enrique, in your opinion, how impactful was these three big JRPGs showing up on the Microsoft stage, and the fact that they got Phantasy Star Online 2 as an exclusive for over a year?
So it's interesting. I heard some people say, or read some things, and I think it was like the GameSpot forums or something, where some people were saying, "Oh, those games aren't going to sell on Xbox anyway because Xbox gamers don't play those types of games." And I'm like,
that's ridiculous.
That's actually, yeah. I mean, and if it doesn't sell, that's not the point. The point is, the bigger point in all this is that they have Phantasy Star Online 2 as a timed exclusive. Whether or not it sells well, that's besides the point. The point is that they have this now. They have this game that has a following. That has a cult following, I would say. To me, Phantasy Star is just one of those like online games that I sunk a lot of time into on the original Xbox. It was like one of the first Xbox Live games I think really at the time. I think that a lot of Live, if you were an early adapter of Xbox Live, you found a lot of people gravitating towards that game because you could play with your friends and stuff.
Yes, it was a big deal, dude. It really was a big deal.
If you remember the hype behind True Fantasy, which I don't know if you remember that game. That game never happened.
Do. That was the one that never was. Yes.
Yeah. But Phantasy Star Online 2 it's a huge get for them. It's more for me. It's kind of like, regardless of whether or not it's going to sell well, it's an image thing. Like, hey, you know what? Xbox has Phantasy Star Online 2, and it's timed exclusive. Tales is a big Tales of Arise is a big get for them. I mean, I don't think they've had a Tales game release same year since the 360, I think, right?
Yeah, yep, that's correct. Absolutely.
That's a huge get for them. And then we know about Final Fantasy 7. I think anytime you can get Final Fantasy on the platform, that's always a win. But I think bigger than Final Fantasy 7 is the Tales game and Phantasy Star Online 2. I think that's just another example of Phil trying to go out there and get other games that had traditionally maybe been on PlayStation first, or that we would assume that PlayStation would get first, and have timed exclusives like Phantasy Star Online 2. And he got that. And I think that goes into, he recognizes that need to build the relationships, rebuild those relationships with Japanese developers. I think he even said that, that they would like to at some point acquire a Japanese based studio to create content. And I also think that JRPGs, I think there was a little bit of a period of a lull for them, but I think they've kind of made their way back in terms of popularity. So I think this is just a huge get for them, just from an image perspective, because it's just another notch in their belt. Hey, you know what? Yes, we have Gears, and people may know us as the shooter box or whatever, but we have these other games to offer now. We have Phantasy Star Online 2 coming. We have Final Fantasy 7 Remake. We have a Tales game, and so we have all these different games to offer a variety of gamers different tastes, and I think that's a huge win. That's a huge win for them.
Yeah, it is a big deal. I know that some people in the chat, I see Nick going back and forth with folks about how the cult following is real for Phantasy Star Online too.
Absolutely, because you got to think about it. I mean, Phantasy Star Online, if you don't remember, originally debuted on the Dreamcast.
Yes, it did.
And the Dreamcast has a cult following. And when the Dreamcast, which in my mind still has one of the best launches ever of any console launch in terms of games, I mean, Fantasy Online was one of the more popular games on the Dreamcast. Like, that's why I was a little. I will say this: I was a little disappointed not to see a Panzer Dragoon remake on the Xbox, because if you guys remember,
yes, I agree.
Panzer Dragoon Orta was on the OG Xbox, and it was a great game, really good game. But yeah, like Nick's saying, I mean, it has a cult following, and it taps into, at least for me, that feeling of nostalgia. And I'm not gonna lie, Boom, man, I got a little choked up when I saw Phantasy Star Online 2. Like I got the feels, man. I mean, because that's a series that goes back even prior to Phantasy Star Online. If you go back to Phantasy Star, on the Genesis, I mean, that's my experience with that franchise. It's almost like Final Fantasy for me. So it's definitely a big get, man.
Yeah, it definitely was. And listen, I know you got to run at 1:00. I want to thank you so much for being here, dude. Of course, thank you so much for inviting me onto the show last night. We had a lot of fun, of course. And again, thank you for introducing me to Matt Piscatella. He was a gentleman. It was a great show.
Yeah, man, Matt's a great guy. And so I'm sorry. I wish I could stay longer, guys. Unfortunately, work calls, and I have to get back to work, work is overrated.
It certainly is.
I got to figure out how to grow my YouTube channel, so maybe I can live off that. But no, Boom, thank you so much, man, for having me on, man. It's always a pleasure. Salty, it's always great seeing you, man. Nick, great seeing you as well.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, and I look forward to hopefully podcasting with you guys again soon.
Yeah, absolutely, dude. Thank you so much for being here. And again, we'll talk very soon. Everyone, if you're not familiar who this is Enrique from the Basement Radio Arcade Podcast. Please go over there, sub their channel. You won't be disappointed. I highly recommend their work. Everyone on the panel is top notch, and they deal. They're all older gamers, and they all deal in facts, not fiction. And if you're not subscribed, you're doing yourself a disservice.
Thank you, Boom. I appreciate the kind words, man. Guys, enjoy the rest of the day. I'll talk to you guys soon.
All right, brother. Take care. Now, right, Nintendo Direct. I've seen what Salty's been saying, and I've been seeing what you've been saying. So I want to go to you first, because this, for you, this is one of those let's go moments. I know you said that when you were watching it.
Yes, sir.
Break down for the 150 people watching live how important Phantasy Star Online 2 is to the Xbox platform.
Well, I just tell you how important it is to the West in general. People from the West have been going through hoops after hoop after hoop just to play this game on PC. We're talking setting up fake accounts, setting up fake IP addresses, doing this and that. Like it is absolutely crazy the hoops that people will go through to play this game over here, because it's only available in the East and in Japan. So I even tried to sign up for it, but I said, you know what, it's not worth the hassle. This is too much for me. I'm not doing this. I'm not trying to get a translator and all this stuff. So when they announced it, that's a big deal. It's a huge deal for a lot of people. And as you mentioned, this is going to be a sort of timed exclusive, if we will, because it's going to be coming to Xbox and PC first, and then switching PS4, 2021, which is a significant amount of time if you think about it. Like, that's a significant amount of time. I believe that this will pick up. This could be big for Xbox, because the fact that I know a lot of people in my circle of friends that will either buy a PC or an Xbox to play this. I know for a fact. It's a bigger deal than a lot of people think. There's a big cult following for people that already play this game, and there's already people that are clamoring to play this game but don't want to jump through the hoops of signing up and setting up fake accounts and whatnot that will play this game. And so it's a big deal, to I can't remember the person in the chat that was arguing with, but I believe it's a bigger deal than a lot of people are thinking about, because that's huge. Tales of Arise, I believe that's the first Tales game since Tales of Vesperia, which was 2008.
Yeah, it was on the 360.
So
yeah,
it's a decade since they've had a Tales game. That's going to be huge. Final Fantasy VII, I don't know how that's going to work. The rumors are it's going to be it's going to be coming to PC sometime down the road. I don't know if that's true or not. I don't know how true that is. So we'll see how that goes. I don't know. how soon that'll end up on Xbox. But I really feel like I said, the Phantasy Star Online is going to be huge for PC and Xbox, moving forward, especially if they can somehow, which I know it's a free to play game, I believe, right? I hope it is. Anyway, I hope it is. But like the way they'll implement that in Game Pass and whatnot, or how they're going to implement it, I think it's going to be big. It's going to be big.
Yeah,
I don't even know what that means.
Yeah, no, it is a big deal. I'm excited. I'm going to play it. I played it on the Dreamcast, and I haven't played it since, obviously.
The last one I played was on the GameCube, and I didn't even get to play the online functionality of it because I didn't have a I didn't have the what's it called, the modem for the GameCube. So I never got to actually play it online and experience the MMO, portion of it. I've watched people play it, and I know it's something that I wanted to play. And like I said, I wanted to play the Phantasy Star Online too, but I could never do it because I didn't want to go through all the hoops of putting it on my PC. But now that it's just boom, it's coming, like it was a big deal to me. It was a big deal to a lot of people.
Yeah, it is, and I'm excited. Now, Salty, look, I know that I know that you said you were going to skip the topic, but
Salty, you're going to play this game. I'm just letting you know.
I just want because you're a numbers guy, and that's one of the things I really respect about you, that you deal in facts and you use numbers to back up your opinions and usually your quotes on something. And one of the areas that were lacking, besides the first party with Microsoft, has been, of course, the JRPGs. Now, we've seen so many of them, great ones on the PlayStation 4. We've even seen fantastic ones on the Nintendo Switch, and the Xbox brand seemed to have been the kid on the other side of the fence looking at everyone else playing. Their ball has no air in it. Everyone's on the court enjoying themselves. And now, Phil, we know for a fact, like I said, he's talked about it publicly. We know at least 8 times in the last 18 months. That's a lot of trips to Japan, trying to handshake and make deals. And even though you may not play any of these games, in your opinion, as someone who watches the industry as close as you do, was this a big deal for Xbox?
Oh, it's a huge deal. Obviously, RPGs and JRPGs and Japanese games in general have been lacking on the Xbox platform for a long time. And if you look at it from a business standpoint, what is Xbox trying to do? They're trying to reach as many gamers as possible, right? They mentioned billions of gamers, not millions, right? So if you're going to try to reach the most amount of gamers to maximize your potential, right? What's the plan? You need to diversify your portfolio of games. You need to step outside the box, because you can't just be the shooter box and expect to have the Netflix of gaming. See, the thing is a lot of people made fun of the conference because it had different indie games. The Bambi game seems to be one of the popular things to make fun of, or this and that. But I would argue that Xbox had the most diverse showing conference out of any of the conferences when it comes to the amount of different games that they showed. They showed Gears, which is a gory game, a realistic looking shooter with horror elements. Then you have Phantasy Star Online. Then you have, et cetera, et cetera. They're just trying to diversify their portfolio so you have something for everybody. Because if you're expecting people to sign up for Xbox Game Pass or Xbox Game Pass on PC, you need to have stuff that is for everybody, because not everybody likes the same stuff. Not everybody walks into an ice cream shop and picks vanilla. That'd be boring, right? I mean, ice cream store full of vanilla. What should I get today? I'll have vanilla. Now, you go to Baskin Robbins and how many flavors are there, right? So, I think, obviously, I'm not a big JRPG dude. It's not to say that I wouldn't play these games or try them out. It's just my gaming history. I never did play these. So, I love games that are good, and I'm willing to try out anything. I think Final Fantasy VII is probably one of the most anticipated titles.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Like from the hype level and just judging from what people were saying post E3. So people are excited for these things. So I am too, because I'm a gamer. I'm happy for everybody, So
that's a great way to looking at it. Again, our JRPGs may not be your thing, and you know what? That's okay. We don't all have to like the same thing, but at the same time, the significance of getting these titles for the 2, 3, 4 million out of 40 million Xbox players that may play this, right? And again, we don't know if Phantasy Star Online is going to be, let's say, for instance, they make a deal with Sega and it's free to play, right? So they do have microtransactions of some form, I would imagine. I haven't played in years, so I don't really remember. But at the same time, this is an important deal. You got to think about the big picture, folks. When a certain genre, when you say a genre, that genre can include 10 games or 150 games. But when a genre is completely missing from a platform, that's a problem. And the fact that Phil Spencer went out of his way to address this glaring issue that people were talking to him about, folks, you got to tip your cap to the dude. I'm sorry, whether you like his niceness or not. He addressed an issue. He made it his personal mission to go on these trips, and he got 3 of the biggest JRPGs in the world to be on the Xbox platform. That is a freaking huge deal. And you know what? I want to segue into the next topic. And of course, we're going to talk about the American style RPGs in the form of a big budget Fable game. Obviously, has been reported in development. This is not a shock. What is a shock is that according to this report, they're saying that don't expect to see it anytime soon. Now, I'm going to say this. As a Fable fan from the beginning, and as someone who was at the conference, who sat 6 rows from where Phil Spencer was standing, I would be absolutely lying if I didn't say that I walked away disappointed that we didn't get a trailer, we didn't get music, we didn't even get a logo teasing the game's existence. For me, that was a real bummer. And I thought for sure, to be honest with you, that we were going to get some inkling of the game in development. And also one of the issues that I was more disappointed than not is that we don't even know who's doing it at this point. Like, we hear that it's Playground Games. They're working on a big budget AAA RPG, and it's probably Playground Games. But I wish we would have at least got the developer of who was making the game. And this is where I say that I'm honestly not sure why Microsoft doesn't pull a page out of Sony's book, exciting the fan base by showing, a trailer, showing do what Nintendo did and just show a logo. The people would have been passing out in the aisles. Remember when they did the Metroid Prime 4? People were talking about it for weeks.
Metroid Prime 4 ain't coming. So
we know what happened with that, but there are 2 points that I kind of want to talk about, which I wish they would have done. Hook the diehard fans with a trailer of sorts announcing the game's existence. Give us something to be proud of. Like, okay, Fable's coming, yes. And this is where you pull the page out of Sony's book. Grab the attention of the gamers who have not yet purchased an Xbox console. You got to remember, do you know how many people I know personally, and I'm sure you guys know personally, that actually went out and bought a PlayStation 4 because they saw the God of War trailer or the Detroit Become Human trailer or the Spider-Man trailer? I know plenty of gamers and casuals that were like, whoa, I have to get that game. I'm buying a PS4, and didn't buy anything but the PS4 until that game came out. It still sold a system. You know what I'm saying? But you know what I find interesting about this story is they have 2 major new hires that no one is talking about. And once again, they pulled someone, or they attracted someone from the Red Dead Redemption 2 team, which is, I believe it's the 2nd or 3rd person to leave Rockstar. His name is Neil Davies, and he's the senior, or was the senior lighting artist for Rockstar North during the entire development from start to finish of Red Dead Redemption 2. And the second one was Michael Leone, who was a game designer for Rockstar that he's left after Red Dead Redemption's release, and he has a wide range of technical and design skills. And then there was one other one. Tom Maddox joins the team as the audio designer, and if that name rings a bell, it's because he worked at Lionhead Studios. And from there, he moved on to work with Ubisoft, Massive, and freelanced for the PlayStation. So these are three really, really big names that are moving over to Playground, which supposedly they're working on the next Fable. Ex-Lionhead personnel who worked on Fable. Two other people from Rockstar. I believe it's a total of 3 major hires from Rockstar. So I'm going to go to Salty on this. First of all, like me, were you slightly disappointed that we didn't hear anything of Fable? And secondly, in your opinion, does these new hires seem to point that, Fable is probably what they're working on?
Man, you know how I do it. I keep it real 100%.
Yes,
so,
absolutely.
These shows, people are going to have different opinions. So get ready for mine. I was calling this before the show happened. I said,
you did call it. Yes, you did.
Be there, and I told Nick Fable wasn't going to be there. But I fully don't think that Playground is working on Fable. I know that they hired a Lionhead dude, but that studio was closed down. So you hire people from different areas, but I've been saying this for a while, and there's a lot of people that are salty about it, but I'm just going to keep it real. And there's a lot of people that have called me an idiot behind the scenes, and you have to be an idiot to not think that they're doing a Fable game. But here's the deal. When Xbox talked about acquiring studios, right? They said that they were going to give these studios complete freedom, creative freedom. They were going to open their checkbooks up. See, the thing is, if you're going to Playground Games and you're saying, hey, we want you to come on board for Microsoft, Xbox first party studios, but there's a holdup here. You're going to make Fable. It's weird to do that because you're kind of boxing them in creatively and saying, hey, you need to make the game that we want you to make. And that goes against everything they've been saying because they want to give creative freedom to these studios. So that's the first thing that would tell me that this is probably not a thing. And then second of all, you're putting a lot of pressure on this studio that's a good studio to do something they've never done before and do it so well, because if they don't do it well, they're going to have egg on their face. That's the problem, because they already had to close down Lionhead Studios and cancel a Fable project. Now, what would happen if they spent all this time and money with their prize studio Playground and it ended up not being good? It would be a PR nightmare, in my opinion. So
it would be. Yeah, that's true.
In my opinion, I think that they're working on an RPG, which they've always wanted to work on, and they're hiring all these great people from the industry. I just think it's going to be a new IP. I don't think it's Fable. So, I mean, you can DM me if you guys are salty or whatever.
No, I listen. That's you're entitled to your opinion, and you called it about Fable not being there. There's a couple of takes from what you were talking about that I find interesting. When you look back to Horizon Zero Dawn. This is from a team that all they did for their entirety was make a first-person shooter that was terrible. I mean, listen, I bought them all, and I even the collector's edition, which I have in storage, which is a dope-ass collector's edition. But at the same time, they only made this first-person shooter, and they released in what, for me personally, and I know a lot of people don't feel this way, I absolutely adore Horizon Zero Dawn. I think Aloy is an amazing character. I love the world, the graphics, everything about that game I fell in love with. It's probably one of my favorite games of the generation for the PlayStation. There's no doubt. So, of course, I'm super stoked to see part 2. But with that said, you take a talented team like Playground Studios, who they just make driving games, right? Well, in the same instance that you saw the developer of Horizon Zero Dawn move out of their comfort zone from first-person shooter to this open world, action, RPG romp. I think Playground Games could do that. Also, we have to take into account that the initiative is supposedly working on a quadruple A action RPG. What it is, who the hell knows? I just wish we would have gotten some inkling that, listen, I don't even care if they don't tell me who's making it. I really think that it would have been great for the fan base. It would have been great for E3. It would have been great for the platform, for them to come out and say, yes, folks, listen, enough talking behind closed doors and back alleys. We're making Fable, but that's all we're saying. And I would have been okay with that. I think people would have been cheering. I think people still would have been yelling now, a week later, removed from E3. But Nintendo, I saw you once again going back and forth with Salty, using the word fraud. And I obviously, Fable's important to you. It's important to me. May not be important to Salty. You know what? That's okay. That's perfectly fine. But in your opinion, like me, were you slightly disappointed that it wasn't there? And with these new hires, what is your opinion about where Fable is right now?
I was highly disappointed. Me and my wife are big Fable fans.
Okay, so great to hear.
We were waiting patiently to see if there would be any inkling, any rambling, any, like you said, anything about Fable. That's all we really wanted. We didn't get it, so I was a tad disappointed, but it's just whatever. I know I called him a fraud, but I agree with Salty in this one. I absolutely do. Like, after the fact that they didn't announce at E3, I kind of just gave up hope, waved the white flag, and said, okay, it's not coming anytime soon. We're not going to get a Fable. And I kind of have to agree with him. I think they're working on something that's going to be similar to Fable, but it's not going to be a Fable. It's going to be a big budget RPG, and it's going to be a new IP. I just have to agree with Salty on this one. I think Fable is dead. I'm just going to say that right now. I think it's not coming. I don't think we may not ever get one. I think Fable Legends was their last attempt. And they were going to try to, I think Fable Legends was ahead of its time with what they were doing. And I think that was the last attempt at it. And I think whenever the old guard shut that down, I think that was just the end of it. So yeah, hard truths here, and NASCAR says slander, but I just have to agree with Salty on this one, man. After so many years of waiting and waiting and waiting,
people in the chat are falling over themselves on what you're saying. I want you to know that.
And I have to agree with Salty, dude. I really do. And and that's not, it's just, it is what it is. I hope if we get one, I will, sing, and you can call me a fraud, and y'all can set me on fire if we do end up getting a Fable in the future. But I'm kind of with Salty on this one. I don't think it's ever happening.
See, here's the deal. We've been talking about this for a while, and like at a certain point, like once you start building your hopes up for like years, because this was a rumor a year ago,
yeah, a big rumor
last year's E3, and then this year's E3. And what happens if you keep holding your hopes up for a Fable at next year's E3 and they don't say anything? At a certain point, you got to just kind of like say, yeah, it's not going to happen, and if it does, I mean, you'll be super happy about it. But man, I don't know, man. It is what it is. I think you can keep the hopes up, but I see these same rumors over and over at E3, like Perfect Dark. I heard that rumor last year. It didn't happen. I heard Fable last year. Didn't happen. Like we hear these repeating rumors, and then at a certain time, you just kind of gotta, what I'm saying? Like if it happens, then you'll be super hyped about it. That's just my look at it. But it could happen. It could not. We'll see.
I mean, there's a lot of older IPs I wish they would return to. I know a lot of people, a lot of Xbox gamers, like, listen, forget about the old IPs. You know what? You that's like saying forget about your heritage. You can't do that.
Right.
You are who you are from where you came from, and the Xbox brand came from titles like Crimson Skies and Mech Assault, Banjo-Kazooie, Ninja Gaiden, these franchises, these IPs that they have access to need to be revisited at the same time as creating new IPs, which they're currently doing. And they don't have to be $60 billion game budgets. They could be modestly budgeted for each individual title. I think it's almost a sin that we don't have a new Banjo-Kazooie that wasn't announced. The fact that we don't have a proper Killer Instinct 2 announced, that was, for me, one of the biggest disappointments, because I called it. I mean, it's time, folks. It's time. Fighting games are still a thing, right? Look what Mortal Kombat is doing. It's making gangbusting numbers because it's keeping true to what the series was. It's violent. It's ultra gory. It has tremendous, replayability. The guest characters are amazing. Killer Instinct could be that title. They could, and they didn't. Banjo-Kazooie, it was, they were announced for the Nintendo Switch and I've been calling this for 2 years already. So I was actually finally right on one of my predictions that they were going to get it onto Smash, and they did. And that's a big deal. That's a big deal for Phil, and that's also a big deal for the brand, because if people are excited for Banjo-Kazooie on the Switch, why not release a Banjo-Kazooie, you know what I'm saying, for the masses? I think that if they released a really good one on the Xbox, Switch owners who didn't own an Xbox would probably go out and buy one because they enjoy the character that much.
I think sorry to cut you off, but
okay.
it like, out of all those older IP, I think a Banjo-Kazooie game would just blow the top off, if it was done right.
Yes.
Like if they bought Playful Studios or whatever, the people that did,
I called that too. Yes, Playful Corp.
And they made a new Banjo game. I think it would be outstanding. You could package that together, and they put their games on the Switch. They've said that they consider themselves one of the bigger third-party publishers on the Switch. You could put that on the Switch and the Xbox, and then in PC even, and it would sell like gangbusters. Because look at, older titles that have been in that same mold, and they sell like hotcakes. So that's one of them. And then, did you see Ed Boon, what he said about bringing a skin for one of the characters from KI into Mortal Kombat?
Yes.
And then Phil Spencer responded. See, the thing is people want this Killer Instinct and Mortal Kombat crossover. And Killer Instinct 2 needs to happen, man. Like a full-on game, not like
not a DLC, a full-on like a real part 2.
Yeah, like get a nice, man. I would love to have NetherRealm do a KI, but that will never happen. But do a KI 2 and then do a crossover with Killer Instinct and Mortal Kombat, man. Just make it happen.
It's funny you should say that, Salty, because last year at E3, Ed Boon said it himself. Folks, I'm not making this up. Go look up Mortal Kombat versus Killer Instinct. Ed Boon said he would be dying to make that crossover. He said that. I mean, is it going to happen? Well, I can't honestly say. Probably not. But if Ed Boon is saying it, and he can get together with Phil Spencer, how amazing would that be? The next game would be a Killer Instinct versus Mortal Kombat. People would shit their pants.
That would sell so many. I know that Mortal Kombat's one of the top selling games this year, but can you imagine the sales for that? Oh my God, dude. Insane. I think only thing that would top that would be like a crossover event with Marvel and DC and Mortal Kombat and stuff. But yeah, dude, Killer Instinct 2, man, and make it happen. Come on.
Yes. Yeah. Well, listen, that definitely needs to happen. Listen, folks, we're closing in on the 90-minute mark, and normally, as sometimes, Drew and I, we extend the show by half an hour. We try to go 2 hours. And because we had to, I had to scramble to get guests. Unfortunately, we're not. It's going to be a 90-minute show simply because, Nick's got to get ready to go to work. I did actually have one or two more topics, but what I'll do is I'll bring them back around for next week's Xbox Factor podcast. And of course, if you guys can join, we can, Drew is going to be back. I'll hit you guys up. If you guys could be here, we'll do this all over again, and we'll just go back into those topics. But because Nick has got to get out of here, he's actually got to get ready for work, folks. Nick, I want to thank you for being here. I really appreciate you answering the call, because like I said, the show could have been canceled. When you lose your co-host, I could do the show by myself, but it's boring. And I can use the chat, but I don't want to depend on the chat because they're here to listen to us talk, and I respect that. So thanks so much for being here. Please tell everyone where they could follow you on Twitter, but more importantly, subscribe to both of your incredible YouTube channels?
Yes. So you can find me on Twitter, Nintendo Direct on Twitter, and then on YouTube as well, youtube.com/Nintendo Direct. And then I have a video game music channel. I do, I guess you could say, guitar covers or metalcore covers of classic and current video game music. You can check that out. Studio Nintendo is the name of that one.
Nice.
Hop over there, check out the tunes. If you like it, hit that sub button. That channel is growing, and I'm really enjoying doing that one. So I appreciate you having me on, Boom.
Oh no, it's great having you, dude. I love hanging out with you. I love your insight. I love your enthusiasm and your excitement for the industry, and that's real, folks. This is all of us. We're all excitable. We're all excited for the industry and where it's going to go. And I enjoy having you here. And last but certainly not least, obviously, Salty, we worked together for a very long time. We're going to continue to work together in the future. You'll be on my show, of course. I'll be on your show. 4,000 subs. That's a big deal. I'll say congratulations for the third time, because it's well deserved. You worked really hard. You had a real effed up incident with Google kind of taking a dump on your channel for 9 days, and you still were putting out video after video after video, grinding along. Thankfully, your live streaming situation has been rectified. Really, no thanks to Google, because it took over a week, which is ridiculous. But you know what? Your channel's amazing. You're a real dude. You keep it real. I do love that about you. Tell everyone they could follow you on Twitter, but more importantly, subscribe to your outstanding YouTube channel.
Appreciate that, man. Yeah, we're going to be live streaming tonight for the Saltiest Gaming Podcast at 9 p.m. Eastern. We're going to have the full panel back and some guests, so it's going to be fun times. I look forward to that, man. It's like we've only missed a week, but it feels like a month, honestly. So I'm excited to get back into that. And my main platform for social media is Twitter, Saltiest Gaming, all together. The first I is a 1, and that's it, man. It was fun.
It was great to have you here. Great that your channel's up and running again. And before we get everyone out of here, there's still almost 130 people watching live. One of the topics was going to be the xCloud breakdown and discussion. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to throw this out there to you guys that are still listening. I'm going to do a few tweets before the show goes live next week. If you have any questions that you want answered regarding xCloud, I was extremely fortunate enough to get about 15 to 20 minutes of Halo 5 on just a wireless controller. It wasn't attached to anything. I was walking around with it with one of the developers of xCloud, and we were talking back and forth with King from the Iron Lords Gaming podcast, who was taping me. I got 2 videos up on my channel. They're not long because they didn't, because obviously we can only record so much. But if you have any questions and you're interested in xCloud, I could pretty much answer all of them. And we'll do that. We'll bring this topic back around along with a few other ones that I had waiting in the wings for next week's Xbox Factor podcast. Once again, I have to thank the chat. You guys, 150 plus people, almost 160 people watching live. That is pretty amazing. I still get goosebumps saying it out loud because I'm blown away that people enjoy the content that much. I have to say, I love how you guys keep it real. You keep it fair. You keep it a very safe space for just coming, hanging out, and be gamers. And I really appreciate that. And I also have to say a tremendous thank you to the outstanding super chats that we got today. It's just, wow, man. It's just the generosity of this community is second to none. And I want to thank you. And of course, my guests that are here. And of course, Enrique from the Basement Radio Arcade podcast. Please, 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 all of their links are in the show notes. Sub everyone that is on this panel. They deserve your sub, and they're good dudes, and they really care about the industry and the community that comes with it. Everyone, enjoy the rest of your day, and I will see everyone tomorrow morning on the latest episode of Breakfast with Boom. Take care, everyone. Have a great day, and we'll talk soon.